Official announcements reassure Poles, in which we learn about the number of illegal immigrants storming the border with Belarus detained by the border guard. But according to the findings of independent journalists, the real situation is much more dramatic. On Election Sunday, on May the 18th, as many as 78 people broke through into Poland. The next day, May the 19th, more than 50. What's more, none of those people who entered Poland the day before were detained.
The
government is hiding this because they don't want to have problems in connection with the elections and in connection with public opinion, which is very interested in the topic of migration and is crucial for the election campaign. At the same time, it is very inconvenient for the government of Donald Tusk. Hence, they are hiding basic facts that you should know about. The government is allegedly also hiding the truth from Poles on a number of other issues, in agreement with the head of the European Commission. French newspaper Le Monde writes about the informal agreement. The deal is simple. Ursula von der Leyen supports the government in Poland, turning a blind eye to Donald Tusk's statements or even postponing the publication of reports hitting Poland. Von der Leyen knows how to do what is necessary behind the scenes to help, if necessary, the pro-European camp, whose opponents, at a time of rising nationalism, have the wind in their sails. There is no doubt that Donald Tusk and therefore Rafał Trzaskowski are Ursula von der Leyen's investment in Polish politics. That is why the Law and Justice government has been racked with various EU sanctions for a long time, so that Donald Tusk's team could come to power. Ursula von der Leyen never hid this, by the way. As early as 2022, during the Congress of the European People's Party, the head of the European Commission publicly anointed Donald Tusk and entrusted him with the mission to take over power in Poland. Already a year later, during the campaign before the parliamentary elections, Tusk encouraged Poles to boycott the referendum on mass immigration pushed by EU institutions. Solemnly, before you, I cancel this referendum. The referendum announced by the Law and Justice government was supposed to prevent Poland from being forced to accept illegal immigrants from Africa and the Middle East, who have been storming Europe's borders en masse for the past 10 years. But for it to be binding, turnout would have had to have exceeded 50%. The Tusk-friendly media encouraged Polish people to boycott the vote.
A więc oto wyobraźmy sobie teraz, że ja jestem komisją wyborczą.
So, now let's imagine that I am the election commission. You come to the polls and we tick off. You're on the list, go ahead. Which ballots do you want? I mean, I automatically give you 3, right? And you say, I'll only ask for ballots for the same in the Senate. I do not accept the referendum card. The referendum turned out to be invalid, allowing Tusk to sign the Migration Pact just 10 days after taking power in Poland. Now, before the presidential election, Tusk assures Poles that they have no reason to worry. Do you continue to promise that Poland will not accept imposed migrants? I mean, that's exactly what we are doing today. But will we not have to pay? Because I remember in February you said that we will not pay. We will not pay. These assurances are what the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is trying not to hear. And her behaviour is explained by Le Monde in this way. As the presidential election approached, von der Leyen became more lenient on the Migration Pact. At a joint press conference in Gdańsk, she did not react when Donald Tusk declared that he would not implement the EU's Migration and Asylum Pact, even though that legislation is due to take effect in 2026 and is binding. She preferred not to make a scandal out of it, knowing that after the elections, Tusk would comply with the regulations. And these are clear and provide for no exceptions. Another issue is the Green Deal. According to Le Monde, also on this issue, Tusk is now being allowed to make statements that will be not accepted by other leaders. Ursula von der Leyen even postponed the publication of a report on the CO2 reduction target until after the elections, although it was supposed to be published in the first quarter of this year and is unfavourable to Poland. But according to French journalists, Tusk can also count on the European Commission's chief's quiet help on other topics. In order not to hurt Warsaw, the Commission has also deliberately delayed decisions on regulating trade with Ukraine after June the 5th, a politically risky topic in Poland where farmers fear competition. The situation is similar with the Mercosur agreement. As the authors of the article point out, Brussels is not in a hurry to ratify it so as not to anger Polish farmers and thus hurt Tusk. This pressure has eased somewhat, at least in the propaganda sense, in relation to Poland, because it would hurt Trzaskowski terribly. But later this investment is supposed to pay off. That is, Poland is supposed to obediently fulfill all these goals, including Ursula von der Leyen's immigration and climate goals. So far, Germans have been satisfied with Donald Tusk's attitude. In May 2020, they honoured him with Germany's highest honour, the Charlemagne Prize, and last year with the Prize of European Journalists for here, and I quote, his tireless fight against autocracy, his work to defend and preserve democracy, freedom of speech and the media. This award was received on his behalf by Justice Minister Adam Bodnar.